Hello everyone. It is my distinct honor to be able to speak to you today on this topic of great importance to me, which is student engagement at the high school level. But first, my name is Michael Kashadi and I'm a recent graduate of Cumberland Valley High School. This summer I've been developing a webinar for the Pennsylvania Department of Education's Office for Safe Schools, and am working on raising awareness for the importance of student engagement in addressing important school climate issues, for example bullying, dropout, etc. In the fall, I will be attending Harvard University to study chemistry with the eventual hope of becoming a cardiothoracic surgeon. Now, many of you might be curious as to why I am discussing student engagement. Well, much of my time at Cumberland Valley was spent being an engaged student. Most pertinent to this summer's work, though, was my serious involvement with It Takes One, otherwise known as ITO. ITO, which I will explain in much more detail later, is Cumberland Valley's organization/club that directly utilizes students to help implement the Obeus bullying prevention program at the high school level and helps improve the overall climate of the school. So, throughout my work, I learned a great deal about how student engagement works in changing school climate. I built good relationships with teachers and administrators and was given a powerful voice within my school. I feel that these experiences granted me useful insight into how students are the greatest agents for change within a school. And now I want to share with all of you here what I learned so that you can feel comfortable in harnessing the power of youth to affect positive change within your schools. With the support and guidance of Mike Kosa, the Director for the Office for Safe Schools, and Mary Dolan, the State's Bullying Prevention Coordinator, I now present this webinar entitled The Essential Role of Secondary Student Engagement in School Climate Renewal, a case for giving youth a voice for change. To start, I would like to, for your convenience, provide all of you with a map detailing where this webinar will be going. The overview of topics for this presentation will be in this order: a section covering basic definitions of the vernacular I will be using, a section covering the purpose of the webinar, slides covering school climate, slides covering student engagement, a case study of my personal involvement with Cumberland Valley High School's It Takes One Club, a look at how student engagement fits into comprehensive bullying prevention, information on achieving sustainability, and finally, the important takeaways of this presentation. Before we can get into the main points of the webinar, it is necessary that I provide you with definitions of the various unique terms I will be using and the context in which I will be using them. First, I want to address school climate. School climate is, according to Darian Pickerel, the quality and character of school life. They note that school climate is based on patterns of experiences and reflects norms, values, practices, and organizational structures within a school. Gruner has a different but still useful interpretation of school climate. He says that school climate is the general attitude of the school, the collective mood of the school environment. I want to stress, however, that school climate has a time frame on it. Climate is usually something that exists in a school for a short period of time before being changed or altered. Next, I want to cover school culture. School culture is, according to Gruner, the ingrained set of expectations or rules within the school environment that are passed through the generations. He also explains this definition to mean the overall personality of the school. Just with climate, school culture has with it a specific time frame. School culture usually exists over much longer periods of time. Now we come to student engagement. Student engagement is the process by which students actively participate in the dynamic learning and social communities of the school ecosystem. Throughout this presentation, I will be using adjectives like meaningful and positive extensively to qualify certain aspects of student engagement, school culture, and school climate. Attaching these adjectives means associating with them the understanding that these entities described will promote the highest degree of moral and ethical standards in order to enrich social-emotional learning frameworks and foster a democratic community. It is important to note that it is necessary for engagement and school climate to be meaningful or positive. Efforts within schools are usually not effective if they are not meaningful or positive as I define them. I would now want to define for you an environment of trust. I will be using this word to describe the appropriate atmosphere within which student engagement opportunities flourish. An environment of trust is a school environment where there is a mutual feeling of trust between all members of the school community. This environment works by building relationships. All relationships in this dynamic are critical for establishing positive school climate renewal, but the one most in need of further attention is that of students between faculty and administration. Students should have the relationship with school officials so that it reflects the need for students to be looked upon as not only capable of having voice, but also as necessary agents for possessing voice. Connectedness is one of the important facets of having a positive school climate. Connectedness is the necessary feeling of attachment to one's school essential in establishing a positive school climate. Connectedness means, again, building relationships throughout the school community, and its importance lies not only in the feeling of self-worth that comes from being a part of something, but also in the opportunities created from these relationships. In total, if students feel connected to their school, academic and social security will be promoted within the school environment. Bullying is a hot-button word thrown around to describe many a negative situation in schools. However, it is important to know the accurate definition of what bullying actually is. The Center for the Study and Prevention of Youth Violence defines bullying as an intentional aggressive act of doing harm that occurs over time and involves an interpersonal relationship characterized by an imbalance of power. Bullying is most effectively addressed by utilizing comprehensive approaches. Now, comprehensive bullying prevention can be defined as a multifaceted approach that involves the entire school community working in tandem to address bullying as well as other pertinent school climate issues. According to Social and Emotional Learning and Bullying Prevention, such approaches utilize school-wide components, classroom components, and interventional components. Next up is sustainability. Sustainability is the ability to maintain and upkeep implemented programs so that they remain effective bodies for future generations. Sustainability is especially important for student engagement initiatives so that interest in them can be maintained. I would even say that a key facet of establishing any student engagement initiative is formulating a plan from the start to achieve sustainability. I will be using words like organization and club throughout this presentation, and it is important to know that they have, for these purposes, individual specific definitions as they relate to describing school entities. An organization refers to the institutional structure of the entity and how it interacts with administration in an official capacity, for example, involvement in policy making or being a vehicle for implementing school programs. A club refers to an entity that operates within the social capacity of the school, as it is responsible for interacting with the student body directly and engaging the students in the various cultural issues of the school. To explain the purpose of this webinar, I must talk about the current state of school climate, how climate can change culture, and the disadvantages of not having student engagement. The current state of school climate is something constantly developing and evolving. Recently, as schools and communities attempt to address outstanding social issues within schools, the topic of improving school climate has reached the forefront of the national conversation. School climate challenges vary from school to school, from climates in great respect to climates in great disrepair. A climate in disrepair creates hostility in schools that can turn into a breeding ground for negative behaviors. So, for example, bullying. Thus, it is of paramount importance to renew climates in disrepair so that bullying can be addressed more effectively in schools. Some may argue that it is school culture that needs to be focused on rather than climate. Well, that would be a partially correct statement. Changing school culture is the ultimate goal. However, that only occurs by first addressing school climate. Gernert identifies this problem well. He knows that changing culture is a much more difficult task than changing climate. However, one may shape culture over time by assessing, reevaluating, and renewing school climate. By starting small and systematically working to improve school climate, school culture over time will adapt to reflect the established positive climate. In an effort to explain the purpose of this webinar as it relates to student engagement, it helps to identify the serious disadvantages of not having high school students engaged in the collective well-being of their schools. Essentially, school climate cannot change without having students encouraged to be advocates for themselves and for their school communities. You see, without student engagement, well-intentioned efforts at the administrative level to change school climate could result in the perception of directives being thrown at stubborn teenagers, meaning students could, in retaliation, largely ignore or even mock the proposals. I've seen this from personal experience. Most strikingly, though, I've noticed that an environment absent of student engagement and student voice creates a void where students' inherent need to be heard will manifest itself naturally in the form of gross power battles between students, effectively resulting in a school climate that fosters bullying rather than student-to-student cooperation. I would even argue that bullying is the direct opposite of cooperation among students, as both involve the acquisition and distribution of power, just on the opposite sides of the spectrum. Bullying involves one student taking the majority of the power and using it to belittle and harm students, while cooperation involves students working together to share the power to solve problems, regardless if it is equally distributed initially. Moving on, I've yet to actually talk about why a positive school climate is necessary. Of course, inferences can be made, but my next section will cover in detail the specifics on why a positive school climate is important and should be a priority for schools. Derry and Pickerel note that having a positive school climate fosters youth development and learning necessary for a productive, contributing, and satisfying life in a democratic society. Cohen, Pickerel, and Levine note as well that school climate is critical, and besides providing an adequate environment for traditional pedagogy, teaching students to be engaged citizens and collaborative workers. Collaboration, of course, is a pillar of democracy. Weisbaum and Buffard say that a positive climate sets up an environment conducive for exploring the importance of empathy, caring, and positive community building. Thus, a proper school climate is necessary to support any bullying prevention program, as positive school climate instills in students a sense of equity, leadership, and respect. Building off the idea of an environment of trust, Weisbaum and Buffard also note that the best way for students to grasp key moral concepts is to learn them from trusted adults, and thus having a positive school climate that fosters strong school relationships between students and staff is the best way to achieve this. Next, I want to expound upon how building a positive school climate relates to comprehensive bullying prevention. Cohen and Freiberg draw the critical connection between school climate and how bullying prevention by stating that true bullying prevention is identical to school climate improvement. Because the most effective bullying prevention programs utilize a whole school approach, according to social emotional learning and bullying prevention, it is necessary, again referencing Cohen and Freiberg, to engage in comprehensive school climate renewal that at its heart establishes a message that both inspires the courage to want to solve bullying problems and delivers the idea that mean-spirited behavior is not tolerated. Cohen and Freiberg identify essential elements for joint school climate renewal / bullying prevention efforts. These are educational leadership, engaging the whole school community, this is what I will be discussing further on, assessment of approaches and progress, and finally policies, rules, and supports. The notion of student engagement was alluded to in the latter part of the last section, how engaging the whole school community is an essential part of school climate renewal or bullying prevention. So then, what is meaningful positive student engagement? Well, meaningful or positive student engagement is student participation in the overall voice of a school in a way that promotes positive change while abiding by and enforcing the moral and ethical standards required of a respectful and democratic community. On the most basic level, positive student engagement means having students invested in the overall well-being of the school climate by 1, actually caring about where they spend most of their time, and 2, genuinely wanting to see their school become a better place. Now that you have a general idea of what positive student engagement means, I want to present to you my guide to student engagement. I compiled what I call the different levels of student engagement. A bottom-up approach is used to describe the various levels, all of which build upon the other. Level 1 is the simple act of conversing and investing time to contribute to the school conversation, whether on an academic level in class or on a social level. Examples of this include class meeting participation and active participation in classroom discussion. Level 2 is taking a proactive approach, not in an official capacity, to renew the school climate, or perhaps just completing one civil duty to promote a respectful environment. All of this is done on a student-to-student level. Examples of this may include active bystander behavior to comfort targets of bullying behavior. Level 3 is building relationships with staff and developing trusting partnerships with them to tackle some school issues, or even use the partnerships to bounce suggestions off of one another. Having an established environment of trust is critical to this level of engagement succeeding. Level 4 is making a significant effort to develop an initiative with an official capacity to effect positive change. It is critical that one gather administrative support to grow throughout the entire district. ITO fell into this category of engagement. Level 5 is expanding engagement efforts into the community and building school community partnerships so that the entire community is invested in making its school better. ITO is working toward this level. Barbara Shaman's program, Champions of Caring, and her partnership with Kensington Business High School in Philadelphia and the Jewish Family and Children's Services to bring youth together with Holocaust survivors to share their experiences was an example of this level of engagement as well. Level 5 is important because it could result in a student engagement model that can be duplicated and adapted for other schools. It is time for me to devote a good deal of breath now to explaining ITO and providing you with a case study of this organization so that it presents general key pieces of information on how to engage youth at the secondary level. I intend for this case study to shed light on important tactics that can be duplicated to engage youth in your schools. To start, I want to explain my involvement with ITO. The start of the 2011-2012 school year at Cumberland Valley High School saw an unprecedented joint effort by the administration and the district's bullying prevention coordinator, Mrs. Geraldine Johnson, to reach the high school population in a way that would facilitate the adoption of the newly implemented Obeas Bullying Prevention Program, or OBPP. Together, they formulated an ingenious idea: offer an opportunity for students to engage themselves in a student-driven organization aimed at securing grassroots support for OBPP. The organization was entitled It Takes One, and its mission was clear: to foster a school culture in which people not only have the courage to stand up to bullying, but also develop the desire to do so. I was fortunate enough to be one of the 3 overall leaders for the organization, and being provided an arena within which I would be given real, administration-supported power to change my school was something I had never experienced nor even heard of. Starting out, we were uncertain about what our exact role was, but as time went on, everyone saw our incredible potential for effecting positive change. ITO evolved into an organization that played a significant role in changing the culture of the school by 1, being directly involved in both providing input on the implementation of OBPP and crafting new supplemental bullying prevention initiatives, both of which effectively changed the dynamics of the school by establishing a cohesive network of interconnected support systems centered around the students. And 2, promoting the idea that in order for OBPP to work, the school climate needs to be one that promotes inclusion and connectedness so that social isolation and thus marginalization can be avoided. I talked earlier on this interconnected network of support systems, so I created for you this visual aid to help better understand the role ITO has within Cumberland Valley, and also to illustrate on a more general level the role student engagement initiatives have in relation to the whole school-wide communication network. At the center of this diagram are the students, because everything in education revolves around meeting the needs of the students. Surrounding them are 4 outlets students can go to for support, help, and guidance. To improve school climate, it is necessary for students to have various resources accessible to them to feel safe, secure, and empowered. Now, the arrows surrounding these outlets, which are administration, teachers, school programs and initiatives, and at Cumberland Valley this was OBPP and class meetings, and finally student engagement initiatives. At Cumberland Valley this was ITO. The idea behind this diagram is to show how all these outlets depend on each other for support, and they must have effective communication between all of them so that there is a standardized approach to meeting the needs of the students. Feedback can be exchanged via all these outlets and delivered more effectively to the students. Improvements can be made and suggestions considered when all the communication loops are complete and students are key participants in them. For example, if students need an idea or a suggestion to reach the administration regarding a class meeting, ITO can serve as a liaison. This is certainly easier for students because, for obvious reasons, it might be less intimidating. I was fortunate enough to be involved with ITO from the start. As time went on, we learned a lot about how to organize youth effectively in schools and how to engage them in a positive way. In total, my personal experience with ITO in Cumberland Valley has shown me the power of student engagement and how secondary students in particular are uniquely suited to positively influence the culture of the school. The necessity of encouraging student engagement is reflected in some basic advantages it provides. I have found that it 1. Increases the degree of connectivity students have to issues in the school, which allows students to be part of the solutions. 2. Builds stronger relationships between students and teachers and administrators, which allows for the development of mutual trust. And 3. Allows students to feel relied upon as essential parts of normal school operations, meaning administrators and teachers will sometimes defer to engaged students for advice, feedback, and input. On a more general level, though, ITO has given me valuable institutional insight on the nature of successful student engagement initiatives in schools. I've learned that successful engagements must take a multifaceted approach. Like ITO, successful student-led clubs or organizations should be involved on both an administrative and cultural level, meaning these organizations or clubs should be involved in both working with administration to accomplish goals and with the student body to change the climate of the school. Now, with any effective case study, there is a section that explains what worked and what did not work. Here I want to present to you with some general statements on what made ITO successful, as well as some points on what I found from personal experience did not work with student engagement at the high school level. First and foremost, ITO was successful because it was seriously supported by the administration of Cumberland Valley School District, all the way, in fact, to the level of the school board and superintendent. And at the time, that was Dr. William Harner, now the current Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Professional development was also key to our success, as we had teachers and principals focused on the mission of renewing school climate and comfortable with trusting students to have voice. ITO's organizational structure, as mentioned before, allowed it to fill multiple niches within the school, as it was involved on both an administrative and cultural level. Having interviews and an application process for the leaders ensured that students who demonstrated necessary leadership skills, passion for the cause, and empathy were in charge. Next, to launch ITO to the students, its internal structure was first modeled after that of an already successful engagement initiative in our school, and that was Cumberland Valley's Mini-Thon, which is a year-long fundraising initiative emulating Penn State University's larger Thon to help raise money for the Four Diamonds Fund at Hershey Medical Center, which supports children with pediatric cancer and their families. Eventually, this model did not work, however. However, it allowed people to be interested in ITO because it established some sort of familiarity with how it would be organized. So, using something well established as a baseline is an easy way to gain interest, but always be aware that things may have to vary from this model. Now for some intangibles. Persistence, confidence, and of course a thick skin against criticism were also key. On a broader level, though, ITO was able to remain in place because we at Cumberland Valley High School had a sector of the student body willing to set aside stereotypes and eager to involve themselves in this organization and help address bullying in the school. Some concrete examples of what we were successful in doing may be helpful to supplement these general statements. We were successful at welcoming students into the Cumberland Valley community with new student bags and various welcome meetings. This helped establish connectivity. We also created a place through our meetings that provided a secure and safe spot for kids to go after school who maybe just needed something positive in their life or needed a place where they could make friends better. We hosted assemblies and developed videos to share during class meetings. Our most popular video was one that interviewed staff and students in the school on their feelings about racism, discrimination, and stereotyping. We also had a badminton tournament sponsored by us, meaning the proceeds from the registration went to fund ITO for that year and hopefully into the future. Now, what did not work so well? Well, the biggest setback ITO had was starting out with too ambitious of a vision. Well, you may think this seems appropriate, but in reality it makes it really difficult to accomplish anything because the small things critical for Upstart are largely ignored. Also, our initial communication abilities were lackluster, which resulted in poor attendance in the beginning. We did not have the infrastructure in place to disseminate meeting dates and information effectively to reach all students. And that if attendance is poor in the beginning, it's usually an uphill battle from there. The last thing that failed was starting out with committees, per the model of Cumberland Valley Mini-Thon. These committees range from finance, community relations, new student welcoming, student relations, etc. Now that quickly fell apart because we lacked unity in a time where we needed most. Now for those of us who are fans of United States history, imagine the failure of the Articles of Confederation in the early 1780s. This first constitution failed because the states were too separate and the federal government lacked the necessary central unity to survive. I want to move on now from the case study and place student engagement within the larger context of comprehensive bullying prevention. The word comprehensive means of large content or scope, wide-ranging. So naturally it makes sense that a comprehensive bullying prevention program needs to incorporate the largest members of the school community, the students. Per my model of an interconnected school communication system, students lie at the center of every effort the school makes, as they should since it has the goal of education in general. Thus, because students have the largest representation in schools, they will ultimately be the driving force behind school climate. As it relates to the success of bullying prevention programs, student engagement is absolutely crucial. Cordillo states that it is almost counterintuitive that oftentimes schools fail to engage its largest constituency in the ongoing process of improving the school community. Thus, it behooves schools to include students in all school climate improvement efforts from their inception. The OBPP even encourages youth engagement when it is implemented at the high school level. According to Social and Emotional Learning and Bullying Prevention, anti-bullying programs that exclusively focus on those who engage in bullying behavior and targets are not as effective as those that include other students. This then points to having student engagement at the level of the active bystander. And of course, the active bystander with bullying situations is probably the most effective tool in stopping bullying behavior. I want to now take a quick moment for your benefit to present some key research findings I made that support how student engagement directly improves school climate. Now, much research has been done on bullying prevention efforts in schools and the need for comprehensive approaches to the issue. In my view, a comprehensive approach must include avenues students can take for getting involved in and providing help for these efforts. According to Social and Emotional Learning and Bullying Prevention, when schools are able to scaffold bullying prevention under a larger, more comprehensive framework for prevention and positive youth development, they strengthen their prevention efforts while also addressing some of the underlying contributing social, emotional, and environmental factors that can lead to bullying. This framework, combined with student engagement will help accomplish the goal of establishing a healthy school climate. This can be supported by research that pinpoints the key positive effects of having engaged students. Fullen and Morshed, Chijioke, and Barber note that a lack of engagement is one of the most common reasons why so many school reform efforts fail. Furthermore, the dropout issue is something that plagues schools. It is a school climate issue that often stems from bullying. Early research by Wellage et al. Has shown that children who feel a sense of belonging and connectedness to a school are more likely to refrain from dropping out. It also has been found by Alexander and Twiesel and Harsey that student engagement is a key solution to the dropout issue. A recent publication by Christensen et al. Indicates that student engagement heightens an individual's sense of belonging and connectedness to a school. Now, using an inductive approach, the argument can be made then that investing in student engagement will dramatically help alleviate some of the dropout problem that is destroying the educational opportunities for millions of young people. From a broader perspective, student engagements will help foster a more positive school environment, which should certainly help arrest the efforts to curb the bullying epidemic in American schools. A very good concluding piece of research by Stappa et al. Ties everything I just said together. Because, as this paper states, a growing body of research indicates school connectedness is a powerful predictor of adolescent health, I argue then that student engagement efforts make more sense in how they can reduce bullying incidences, because at its core, student engagement is about making students feel more connected to their school. As I addressed in this presentation section on understanding the vernacular, sustainability is critical in making any student engagement effort effective in the long run. I want to now talk more specifically on the importance of sustainability. Sustainability, together with persistence and dedication, is necessary for results because oftentimes programs aimed at school climate renewal, whether coupled with student engagement or not, take time to work. A lot of sustainability can be achieved with candid support, with candid student input, if schools are willing to establish that all-important environment of trust and willing to listen to what works and what does not from the perspective of the student. Another popular method for achieving sustainability is celebrating and publishing the results of the initiative. So, maintaining a continuous system of feedback is essential for sustainability. This could be accomplished with follow-ups, questionnaires, surveys, and data-driven decision-making, all of which render clear and concise results. Also, make sure to publicize these results to the entire school community. This serves two purposes. One, it makes outsiders and members of the community aware of what is being done, which oftentimes sparks their interest in wanting to see further successes. And two, it encourages more people to get involved with the success of the program. Now, this latter point is a very good way of achieving growth. Sustainability is also achieved with a top-down approach to organization by securing administrative support. If administrative support cannot be secured, beyond the support of teachers, programs will have a better chance for successful implementation because the appropriate logistical measures for success will be provided. Now, with administrative support, professional development is prioritized to educate the staff on school climate renewal, bullying prevention, student engagement, etc. Now, this next point is critical. School officials must provide the opportunity for students to engage themselves. Making the assumption that they will come on their own is erroneous because students at the secondary level are very oftentimes preoccupied with many other important things. ITO was made sustainable because the administration provided students the opportunity to get involved. I guess I would say the main point I give to administrators is this: help will always come if it is asked for. Finally, community outreach is another good way to achieve long-term sustainability of a school initiative. Communities offer a vast amount of resources that help organizations, programs, etc. grow in the school and expand into the community. Also, community resources are fantastic marketing tools. ITO presented at the Cumberland County Law Enforcement Officers Association breakfast 2 years in a row and established ourselves and our mission within the ranks of the local government. Finally, we have arrived at the last section. Before I log off, I want to end with a wrap-up of everything I presented in the form of some takeaways. To start, I want to reaffirm the importance of trust in the school community. Having in place an environment of trust is necessary to build relationships, increase school connectedness, and promote respect among all members of the school community. Schools must trust students to have a voice so that true student engagement can be achieved. And this will be reciprocated, as if students feel trusted, they will approach school officials in a trusting manner to solve problems together. Another takeaway I want to leave you with is in the form of a checklist to self-assess the state of your school's climate and opportunities available for student engagement. Hopefully, this will be a gauge you can use to support the need for change if necessary. Ask yourselves these following questions. Are students represented well in schools' decision-making processes beyond student council? Is there a trusting environment between all members of the school community? Are avenues available to students who want to engage themselves to positively change the climate of the school? Is student feedback seriously considered? How is the communication loop between faculty and students? Is it a two-way loop? Now, as you go over those self-assessment questions, the final piece of information I want to give you are the 6 key facets of the overall message my webinar is intended to illustrate. I want you to feel educated on, if nothing else, through this entire thing, these 6 points. 1, every school is different in its constitution. Thus, every school must adapt these generalized ideas I presented to best fit its culture and context. 2, school climate renewal is something many schools have started to consider. However, keep in mind that no effective program or initiative in schools succeeds without student input from the beginning. 3, student engagement does not have to involve every student in the school, as that would be unrealistic and even unwise. Instead, having a few caring, responsible, respectful, and motivated students to be engaged is probably more realistic at the secondary level. Plus, they will act as representatives for the entire student body, and they will look after its collective well-being. 4, do not overlook ways to recruit students who have not had the opportunity to become engaged in school activities. Perhaps they have not seen themselves as leaders, but adults can invite them to step forward. I urge you to think beyond the traditional student leader. 5, giving students avenues through which they can acquire a voice and the resources to effect positive change will facilitate the renewal of school climate into one that supports comprehensive social and emotional learning frameworks, and thus aids in seriously addressing climate-related issues such as dropout and bullying. And finally, and probably most importantly, always keep in mind that even though young people may at times be impulsive, inexperienced, and unpredictable, we possess an unmatched passion, a fire within us which, when harnessed and channeled into good causes, is capable of moving mountains. I would like to extend my most sincere gratitude for everyone who tuned in to listen to my thoughts on the importance of secondary student engagement and school climate renewal. It is my hope that all of you have been convinced in giving youth a voice for change within your schools. There is a slide, or multiple slides, containing all the references I used in compiling this presentation, and hopefully it is useful to you at some point as you explore for yourselves the importance of having an engaged student body. Once again, thank you all, and may this upcoming school year be a time of fruitful learning and development for all members of the school community.